Welcome to the latest Linear Fisheries DVD. Whilst we're here, we're going to base camp ourselves here on Oxley's.
That's right, mate. Yeah, we've got a couple of swims relatively close together, just from a filming point of view, and we're going to concentrate on two different tactics here on Oxley's. I'm going with the solid bags over spod. Ian's going to be hyperactive as normal.
Spotted on his zigs.
Spotted on his zigs, so he's going to catch more than me. And it was red hot when we got here yesterday, 32 degrees, and he kicked off with a lovely, lovely dark 27-pounder.
What a belting fish that was. So we're going to nip off now and have a quick cuppa, then we're going to take you for a tour around the lakes. Right, here's one for you. Never been a linear before. Tip up, setting up with a peg. What do I do? A, about getting a ticket, and B, what facilities are there?
Yeah, you can just turn up, find your swim, first come, first serve basis on the swims, and the bailiff comes round twice a day, takes your money off your cash or credit card to take. Facilities-wise, there's lovely showers, flushing toilets, portaloos, fresh drinking water, so you're all self-contained here.
And they're open?
Yeah, they're open 12 months a year, no close season, stay as long as you want.
And the winter, you and I have done a few winters up here,
mate, yeah.
And it does. It's worth coming in the winter.
Yeah, mate, the nights can be long, but you know, the big fish do come out in the winter, don't you? You've had some good fish. You had your biggest in the winter, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a 44-pounder in the winter, mate.
Yeah,
so.
mate. Yeah, it's worth persevering.
If there's one fish on site that you choose?
Big plated St John's, it's got to be the one, hasn't it? For me,
fair comment,
it's
mate.
a lovely carp. It does come out, it's quite friendly, but I'm not normally that lucky.
Yeah, fair comment, mate.
And you?
Me? I spent the spring actually chasing this one, moonscale out at Unity over there.
I thought you were going to say that.
Caught all his mates, but I will go back.
You'll have him, mate.
I'll go and get him.
You'll
Well,
have him.
whether I get him or not, it's certainly the one I want anyway, mate. And then I'll go for the big plated. Got one. Oxley's Lake. Slightly lower than average stamper fish, but we've got a lovely little mirror. A couple of bits of pink plastic. Drop off bomb because there's a bit of weed out there. It's over an assortment of spod of hemp and corn. A few pellets. And there you go. What a lovely little carp from Oxley's Lake. We won't dwell on it too long because Ting Tong's next door. And we had sort of almost simultaneously had takes, so Ian I know's got one that's a fair bit chunkier than this one, but what a way to start. Fantastic, love it, fishing. Here we go, mate, one each at the same time, and guess what?
Mine's bigger than yours.
What does it weigh in all fairness?
It's just under 20, mate, 19, 12.
Right, briefly, go on quickly, what are you doing to get this?
I did pretty much the same as you. I spotted about 85 yards, but then I did see quite a lot of fizzing short, and I've just dropped a couple of solid bags about 20 yards out.
20 yards,
really
short. I mean,
short.
that's spod spill range, isn't it? So
yeah, but there's no weed there, and I just couldn't ignore them.
Yeah.
As much as you've had a bite on your spot, I can't sit there and ignore.
No, fair enough, mate.
Like
well,
that,
there you go. It's two different tactics. They've got to bite exactly the same time.
Yeah.
But well done. If you hadn't had your eyes open.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people wouldn't see that.
No.
They just think I'll leave it, you know. But
yeah, fair comment,
luckily,
mate.
I've got a fish bigger than yours.
You have, mate, as
which
usual.
makes change. I'm sure you'll get revenge.
Oh, it's coming,
the
mate. Well, now I know we're fishing differently because I've got little tiny mesh bags of pellet and little bits of plastic at the moment, and a drop-off bomb, a 3.5 ounce bomb. You're doing it different to me, aren't you?
I'm just doing it because my rod's are only 3-pound test scoop. I put a little 2 ounce bomb in, bulk the weight out with pellet.
Solid bag.
With the solid bag,
Yeah, you
and
like
it's only you and little Jake Wildball that got me into it.
Yeah,
and
fair
I use
comment,
them
mate.
Loads and loads. They just quit for getting bites. It's a mouthful. I inject him with the hemp oil, which is a tip I had off Chrissy Lowe.
Yeah, fair comment, mate.
And it's just loads and loads of attraction, and it pulls them down, mate. You know, even in deep 12-foot of water, it'll pull them down to the food source.
But even over spod you'd use that, wouldn't you? Yeah. Because the hemp oil then, I think, pinpoints your hook bait.
Yeah, and you're still only using a tiny little popple.
Yeah.
You know, so it's only like using a little KD or a little rig like a braided rig like you're using. But it works, mate. Quick bites. And, you know, it does work. Casting and showing fish like I've just done.
There's your proof of the pudding, mate, isn't it? You know, we've got 2 tactics going. They both worked this morning. Yeah. And yours is substantially larger than my one was. So well done, mate. Lovely, mate. Nice to see him whiz off on it. There you go. There is a lovely little tip for the weedier of venues. Boilie rig. A couple of really bright ones, little pop-ups, 15 millers, buoyant as possible, in a bit of stockinette. We nick them on there. If you imagine that's cast out into the lake, that'll hold that rig up, okay? It will melt, obviously, the PVA, settling the rig down. And when them pink ones come at the surface, you've got a lovely little sight bob, haven't you, to fire your freebies at. Very sneaky. Right, left Ian sitting over at Oxley's while we're going to have a look at B2 and B1, which is basically Brasenose 1 and 2. Brasenose 1 first. Now this is, it's almost canalised. There's very few features in this lake. The far end's got a little gravel island, which when it gets warm, it's a little bit exposed. You can get them off the shelf there, but if ever there's a lake in the world, really, that is a perfect zig venue, it's Linear Fisheries Brasenose 1. Most of it's between 10 and 12 feet, flat bottomed, drops on one side, picks up on the other side. Now, zigs. Do a lot of tutorials on here with Ian, and we're getting asked all the time, why, what? Well, mid-water to the surface, cover that first, fish accurately, spod all day on it, and honest to God, if they're having it on here, you'll get bored, you'll get tired, you'll be knackered by the evening. So there isn't another venue like this in the country for zigs. Get on here. If I had to sell my art on it, on one tactic on here, I'm going to catch a fish or 2 on in a day, zig fish B1. So while we're on that, before we look at B2, I'm going to nip you back to Oxley's and show you the gear we use and how to make up your zigs. There you are, proof of the pudding. Zigs do work. And there you go, zig fishing. Beautiful little mirror. Can't choose what picks it up, but it's all a bite, isn't it? I'm going to slip in back and show you that zig. There you go, lovely little mirror from Oxley's. Now, we spoke about zigs on B1, and here we are. Very, very simple to create. There's not a lot about them, actually. Lovely little highlight cut down. Black and yellow, needle sharp hook. £10 nylon. Now on this one we've got 12 foot of water out here, so I tied her up at 11 foot. And we bring it down to a lead clip in case we get stuck anywhere. And what with zigs is, tend to use the lightest lead I can get away with out there. I only need the lead to get it out there, because a 4.5, 5 ounce bomb bouncing up and down on 11, 12 foot of hook link is not all that clever, is it? So all the linear lakes respond to this. There was about a dozen spods on that and we had a bite, so give it a go. B2, completely different animal this one. Same sort of stock level as B1, fish to mid-30s, but topography of this lake is like a lunar landscape. It's up and down all over the place. So you need your marker float to locate certain areas. I would recommend slightly warmer weather, maybe the tops of bars, but don't forget when you're feeding, the bait also rolls down them. So I'd have one at the bottom, one at the top, okay? But these same bars will then produce a massive hazard. So 20-pound leaders, otherwise you will, and it does happen, get cut off on take. So safety in mind, 20-pound leaders, one at the top, one at the bottom. Now I'm going to take you back to Oxley's.
The naked choddy. I could sit here and talk about this rig for an hour because it features so much in my fishing, but I've only got a short little amount of time, so I'll quickly whisk through it. A lot of people think it's quite technical, the choddy, which I think is why a lot of people don't tend to use it. But the very basics of the naked choddy, it's a bead, it's your chod, it's another bead and your lead. Now, the first thing I will say, these are 5mm soft taper bore beads, and in order for them to grip the line, you put a new hole through the side of it with a very fine baiting needle. Now, under no circumstances do you do that if you're using this on lead core or with any shot leader knots that are behind the rig, for obvious reasons, because the beads will not go over it, so it will be unsafe. But this way, it's 100% safe. And you know, you're looking at waters like Hardwick, certainly on the Smith side, that's very, very weedy. And the reason why I use the choddy a lot is because I don't tend to use a mark rod a great deal, so in the order I'm moving on to showing fish, I'm not bothered about the depth, I'm just interested that I get on them fish and put a rig that presents a bait on top of the weed and that doesn't tangle, and the naked chod is perfect for that. And I know a lot of people do like to use it on lead core. I prefer to use it naked purely for the reason that I can regulate how slowly that pop-up sinks. Now, I know the weight of that swivel, the crimp and the hook will just sink that pop-up so slowly that even if it lands on one strand of weed, it will sit on top of it. So you're pretty much guaranteed perfect presentation time after time. So all you've really got to focus on is getting onto the fish. Moving down to the lead end, there's just a little helicopter sleeve on there. The lead, that's a 3-ounce lead because I'm obviously fishing at 85 yards today. If I was fishing very short range, I'd be using a 1-ounce bomb. Some people think that choddies and the lead right next to the fish's mouth can pull the hook. I think if you've tied the rig correctly and you've got the right amount of curve and the right size D, that you will not get hook pulls. But there's a little quick link under there, that's just in order that I can change the lead should the fish start moving closer to me. I don't need a big 3-ounce lead to get me out there. So the lead is purely to get me from where I am to where the fish is showing. I'm not bothered if it's 50 yards, 100 yards or 20 yards, I'll just use the right size lead for the job in hand. One final little tip, those beads are there in order for the cameraman to see exactly how the rig is set up, but as a rule of thumb, the bottom bead I have a foot away from the lead so that the rig and the hook point cannot catch on the lead on the cast, and the top bead is between 4 and 5 foot away from the bottom one, so that the rig's going to fly up the line, hit the top bead and come down nice and slowly on top of any weed or any debris.
Well, here's another one. They're coming thick and fast now. When I'm getting these, it's 11 foot deep and the bed of the lake is completely flat, which is unlike where we're going now to see Ting Tong on Smith's Hardwick.
Smith's Hardwick. We're now actually in the Smith side. Originally it was 2 lakes, hence the double barrel name. The Smith side is a bit more uniformed, and when I say that, it's still quite deep, but it's nothing like the one that we're going to look at in the next section, the Hardwick side. And when I say quite uniform, don't be scared of the depth. You've got depths down to 20 foot here, but again, it's quite uniformed, quite weedy. But it will lend itself, sort of naked chods in the weed, boilies, you know, scattered approach with a stick. But there's also lots of areas, there's lots of reeds and overhanging trees. Stalking is a very good sort of tactic in the Smith side. Floaters is another particularly good method. And it's almost opposite to St John's. We're standing here now, it's blazing hot sun, middle of the day, flat calm in this little area, and I'm pretty sure that if we had some mixers with us, you get them taking, which is completely the opposite to St John's, where they want a bit more cover, a bit more cloud and a bit of wind. Here, you'll get them taking when it's flat calm. So the thing is about both Smiths and Hardwick, people are frightened to death of them. This lake is always the last lake to get full, and that's purely because I think people are scared of the depth. Don't be scared of the depth. The fish live in it. They know every inch of this lake. So they'll happily feed in 26 foot or 2 foot, you know, stalking, putting a bit of bait in on the margins. Just keep your eye on it. We're just doing a little walk around for the purposes of the DVD. We've already found an area of the lake that's absolutely coloured like you wouldn't believe. It's very obvious where the fish are. And there's a couple of anglers that are very, very close by that can't just quite get a bait on it, you know. So it's worth, on this water in particular, keeping your eyes open, baiting a few little spots. Just be mindful to bait out of the sort of depth of the swans, or else the birds will nail you. But the Smith side, quite uniform, but I would be tempted to perhaps a naked shoddy and be quite stealthy about your approach, scatter a few boilies and just fish for a bite at a time. If that fails, get the floats out. We've now moved over to the Hardwick side of Smith's Hardwick. Now this side is a totally different proposition to the Smith side. This is so up and down like an egg box you wouldn't believe. Just for an example, one of the plateaus I used to fish just off the Summer Bay Spit, I was fishing on 9 foot of water. One side it's 22 foot, the back side is 18 foot, so you've got to be pinpoint accurate with both your rig placement and your spodding. On this side, because there was more clear areas, once you found the top of the plateaus or the top of the bars, I would tend to spod little bits and bobs, hemp, corn, pellet, fish a bit of plastic corn over the top, or a tiny little dumbbell and a bit of plastic, something that's mimicking what you're actually putting out with your spod. We're standing right now in Summer Bay, it's beautiful, right on the back of the wind, and I can guarantee if you put mixers out at this time of day, if the birds allow, you will get them taking. It's like no other lake on the complex, and they will take in the middle of the day, bright sunshine, flat calm, and you will get opportunities on the surface. There's lots of stalking opportunities right here in Summer Bay. You could get them, again, you're on the back of the wind, nice and flat calm, you can get them taking mixers if the gulls will allow you. But it's a totally different proposition, and just looking right down the bottom end of the lake, past the cut through, it's probably the deepest area there, 26 foot. And I've caught fish in 20, 22 foot of water. Don't actually know how deep it was, or you kind of feel me lead down. It's going down a long time before it hits, but as long as you get that donk, I was just nicking a little mesh bag of PVA pellets. I was fishing where the fish were, so don't be scared of the depth. I know it can be quite daunting. It was daunting for me as it is for anybody else, but you will catch them in that depth of water. And again, keep your eyes open, go where the fish are, and you'll definitely catch them.
That's a good one. That's a right good one.
It's got some girth on it, that has, Ronnie.
Yeah, mate, yeah.
Right, we've zeroed the scales. Let's get her out on the mat.
Right.
What an absolute brute of a fish. We're now going to go over to Manor, which is the real big fish lake of the linear complex, and have a look how my old mucker Ian tackles that place.
Manor Farm, my favourite. Lots of big fish, lots of 40-pound fish, loads of 30s and even more 20s. So for me, this is where I hide away in my personal fishing. But while we're on the subject of big fish, we've also got on site mid-double figure bream. This lake does tench to over 13 pounds. We've got 30-pound pike, lots of big roach, lots of big perch. Don't neglect the other species. I rarely see an angler fishing for anything other than carp. Okay, so bear that in mind. Average depth, 11, 12, 13 feet. Zig fishing for me on this one's a bit out because it's a lot of weed, it's very clear, and I don't want to be cut off. So boilies for me on here. I'm fishing for big uns, tucking myself away. It's not a 5 or 6 bites a day venue. Big carp, fish it for big uns, and you'll catch them. I'll show you the rig that we're going to use a little bit later. Till then, I'm going to nip back to Ting Tong over in Oxley's. Right, whilst talking to you about the Manor Farm Lake, I mentioned boilie rig. This is mine, keep it simple. We've got an avid sight stop, give it a flash of colour. 20mm boilie on this one. Long shank hook, needle sharp, liner, plastic coated hook link and a lead clip. Ejects when you get in the weed, keep it simple, catch more fish. And there, lovely little scaly mirror, zig again, and the scales on this are not too different from most of the stock in the lake we're in is at the moment, St John's.
Here we are, St John's Lake. Easily my favourite lake on the linear complex for a number of reasons. One, and probably the most important, is there's such a wide variety of fish in this lake. And by that I mean small doubles, the stockies, you've got loads of really dark, scaly 20-pounders, typical Oxford carp. You've got loads of 30s, and just touching on the 30s, I think if you're after your first 30-pounder on a day ticket, I think St John's realistically is possibly your best chance of that on any of the lakes. And that's only because of the ease of fishing. On top of the 30s, you've got 3 or 4 40s at the right time of year with a couple of 40-pound commons. The queen of the lake is the big plated, which has been over 45 pound before, and that is easily one of the prettiest fish in the country. It's an absolute stunning, stunning fish. We'll go back to sort of methods and tactics that I've used in the spring, and I just want to touch on spodding. And it's something that I see done on here all the time, and I think people can get it very wrong. And in that, I mean, I spodded once in the spring, and it took me 6 hours to get a bite. And I think they come in and they clear you out. At times, they'll eat anything, and you'll get bites over spod. So I'm not saying that spodding doesn't work, because it does, but you've got to know when to put bait in and when not to put bait in. And after learning how long it took me to get a bite in the spring, I went back to fishing solid bags and fishing single up baits and zigs, and I think I had my best spring ever on the capture front. I wasn't fishing specific areas, I wasn't persistently thrashing the water to a foam with a marker. I was fishing where the fish were sort of telling me they were showing, and I was just fishing for a bite at a time. But a lot of people get drawn into the fact that they've got to get the marker right out, they've got to fish on top of gravel. And we're standing here on the point swim, the third point swim, and this is my favourite area of the lake, no doubt. And these swims, there's lots of features close in. You've got quite a few bars, you've got 3 bars that run off this swim. And when I say bars, they're not sort of severe like some of the ones on Hardwick. They're very sort of slight, but you've got areas of polished gravel on the top, and then you've got sort of slightly deeper water where the silt gathers either in front or over the back. I always prefer to fish over the back, just into the silt. You'll feel, if you're going to use a marker, you'll feel the tap, tap, tap. As soon as you feel the first stone, pop your marker up and then put your rigs just into the silt. And not only that's good for camouflage, but also you can get your bait in the silt, your freebies if you're going to spot in the silt, and they're rooting around. And I just think it gets you more bites pretty much. My favourite of late, and what's got me the bites in the spring, is the solid bag, which we will take you through a bit later when we're back on Oxley's. But that's caught me a lot of fish because it's a very small parcel, bit of pellet, it doesn't tangle, so you're actually maximising your chances of getting a bite because it hasn't actually tangled. Another little tip, and Mr. Russell didn't really want me to leak it, but I like to inject them with a bit of hemp oil. And I have found that the lake can be pretty devoid and pretty dead. You chuck one of them out and within 10 or 15 minutes you've got fish showing all around the slick. And I think because the oil is so concentrated in the bag, it actually pulls the fish down to the point of the source where they're attracted to. And they go down and you've just got your little fluoro pop up and your little bit of pallet, they suck it up and you get a bite. And it really is a good method. If you go to the right, it's almost like 2 lakes. This area we call the bowl, where it's sort of average 11, 12 foot. You go up to the shallows, it's 3 or 4 foot. So if you're going to fish up in the shallows, which is a good bet, once it starts to warm up in the spring, the fish will move in numbers to the shallows. And unless you get a big southwesterly and some low pressure, they'll sit up there because it's warmer. There's lots of weed, there's lots of coverage. So again, give yourself a chance of catching because you're presenting effectively. So either a little choddy on top of the weed or a little solid bag, something that is going to give you good presentation in and around the weed. And they do love it down the shallows. It's not my favourite area of the lake because some of the swims can be quite tight and it's a busy area. So I'd rather give myself a swim where I've got a few more options rather than getting a bit hemmed in. But it does do a lot of big fish, the shallows, at certain times of the year. But any sort of method will work on here if you get it right. So bottom baits will work. You know, I'd love to come on here and try the boilie only approach, but because I know what works, i.e. the small baits, you'd be kind of a brave man to go against the grain. But I know people that do catch them on boilies, you know, and also zigs. Floaters, they can be a bit cute because they've been abused for that long. You know, they took a lot of hammering on the surface, so consequently you have to get the right light levels, you have to get a bit of wind. If it's flat, calm and sunny, they're just going to laugh at you, you know. But zigs in the spring, you know, just be mindful, get the correct depth. The thing with zigs is people will try them, they won't work in an hour and they'll reel them in and put bottom baits on. Well, they do work, it's just the fact that the angler hasn't got the depth right. As a little rule of thumb, in the spring, I was catching in on 11 foots in 12 foot of water. So if you do put your mark out, it's 10, go at 9 foot, just as close to the surface. I've even had bites a couple of inches under the surface, so don't be scared of going right up to the surface or even over depth. So it's just, anything will work on here, but it's such a surprise what you're going to get, because you can get a double or you can get the queen, which is the big plated at 45. Absolutely fantastic lake.
The one back to the cast.
I'm just going to talk you through my solid bag rig now, and it's a rig that I'd use on any of the linear waters. Absolute 100% faith in it, and I'll start from the little lead core end. You'll notice that there's only a tiny amount of lead core there, and all I do that for is I'll splice my own, so they've got a little loop, so all that's sticking out of the top of the bag once they're tied is about 1 inch. So I can get a bite the line, put a new bag on, get it straight back out on the spot, and that can be the difference between catching 1 or 2 or 3 if you're really prepared. So going down the lead core leader, we go down to the lead, and you can notice it's fish drop-off style. What that is, it's a big 4 ounce, really compact inline pair. Fish picks it up, and that's obviously drop-off, so it comes off. Any weed present, it's not going to do you any harm getting rid of the lead. So moving down from the reaction braid, we've got a nice curved shank size 10 hook there, razor sharp. You'll notice it's fish KD style, and when you hold the rig up, it's a really, really aggressive angle, so that's going to grab hold of the fish anywhere inside the mouth once they suck it in. The shot there, it's quite specific where I've got the shot there. You should have the shot just on the bottom of the bend, just to give the rig plenty of movement. The shot's a BB shot, and I have it, and it's got to be exactly 12mm because of my OCD. 12mm from the up bait. And what you'll find is if you play with these in the margins, even if the hook bait lands underneath the bag, because that's a pop-up, the pop-up will force its way through the pellet and sit, obviously, 10 to 12mm above the pellet, so you've got a nice little ball of pellets and a little fluoro pop-up sitting above it all. Perfect attraction, perfect for a quick bite. The hook bait's a little dynamite 10mm mulberry pop-up, and again I like the fluoro aspect. I'm into pinks, so I've been catching a lot on pinks, but colour will be a personal thing. I've got quite a few tied up with the yellows, but I'm really into the pinks because I think that's what's got me more bites this year, so you just tend to favour that colour. But if you look down here, it's all about preparation. You can see there the little lead core leader, so bite it off, tie it on. Some are a bit longer than others. You've got to be really specific. Some people want 3 or 4 foot of lead core. I personally don't find that necessary, just enough, so it's the preparation side that I like the leader for. Bite one off, tie one on, and you're out fishing again. Some of the bags you can't even see the hook bait. Don't worry about that, because once the bag is melted and busted open, the hook bait will force its way through the pallet, which is why I like to use a pop-up, and it just hovers 10 mil above the pallet. So all you've got is the attraction from the pallet, pulling the fish, and then the bright fluoro upbait. Perfect for a quick bite. This is a massive, massive edge. I shouldn't really give it away, but for the purposes of the DVD, I've been told I've got to. And it was something that passed on to me, and it's definitely something that's caught me loads and loads of fish over on St John's this year. Even in 12, 13 foot of water, no fish could be showing. You can put one of these out with the addition of the hemp oil, and fish is showing instantly, and it actually pulls the fish down to the source of where the oil's coming from, which with the aid of a syringe is obviously the little solid bag. So it's just a case of putting the needle in the top of the bag and pushing down on the syringe, and all the oil gets injected into the bag. Now, not only does that soak into some of the pellets, but it will soak onto your braided hook link, the insert of your inline lead, and even the strands of your leg core. And that will keep slicking off for hours and hours, thus giving you maximum attraction for that period of time. And obviously, just for the reasons of health and safety, always be careful where you're sticking the syringes. We're over here on Hunt's Corner, and I'm trying to keep my voice down because it's a very up close and personal venue, Hunt's. Quite limited swims, there's 10 in fact. You pay a bit more per night, but in my opinion, you're paying for that exclusivity and the room in and around the swims. Looking at your swim perimeters, I'll be baiting up a few spots where you can in the margins. Keep your eyes on them, and the fish will normally drift in, have a bit of a munch, and it's just a case of lowering a little solid bag or a mesh bag on top of them. We actually came over with a camera to do this filming. There was a guy on the far margin just baiting up with one of the spoons. Now, my kind of tactic for that would be cast a bare lead over, walk round, clip your rig on, and drop that with a spoon in exactly the same spot as you're baiting up, so you know your presentation is perfect. On the fish stock, you've got loads and loads of 20s, there's some good 30s in the fish room to well over 40 pounds, and you've got a mixture of originals and the stock fish. One final little tip, floater fishing at the right time of year. It probably is the king of the linear complex for floaters. They absolutely love them. But don't think you can just come up and just chuck a single bright fluoro pop-up on them. You've got to get them really competing, and then you can be quite selective and pick the biggest one of the bunch. Right next to the main Hunt's Corner lake, we've got Hunt's Corner Pond. Very small little intricate venue. Let's go and take a look. As you can see, it is only a small pond, the Hunt's Corner Pond. You do need a separate ticket for this place, so be mindful of that fact. But what it is good for, if you're struggling on any of the other lakes to get a bite, one rod, bit of corn, some maggots, there's loads and loads of carp and tench, only small, but you can have some great fun here just for a few hours. So that's Hunt's Corner. Let's nip over to Iain on the Syndicate Lakes.
Right, wherever I walk you now, just a quick flip down the road, Guy Syndicate Lakes. Can't forget these are part of Linear Fisheries. We've got gaunts, We've got Unity, we've got Yeoman's behind you, Guy's Syndicate. 3 lakes, obviously. Now, a personal favourite of mine, there's one jump there and all, is Unity, the one behind us. I had a lovely go on here in the spring. I only had about 9 or 10 nights with the guys, but I come on here in particular for a fish called Moonscale, which is a mirror cut, a really old mirror cut, about 40 pounds. Never got him, but got most of his mates, no complaints. Had a common of 43 pound, which is the biggest one in here. Incredible lake to fish, loads of backup 20s and 30s, and I had a really good couple of weeks on here. Absolutely incredible. Unbelievable this fishing is today. We've dropped a couple of fish, and in all fairness, in discussion with Wayne, who's holding that camera, I decided to reel all 3 rods in because I've been using foot-long hook links, and I've cut them down to about 7 inches. This thing was hooked so nicely in the bottom lip, you could have played that to Scotland and back. It was never going to fall off. An hour ago I said I ain't really interested in them goldfish. I am now. Have a look at that. That is lovely, Mr. Parsons. Brilliant, mate. I love Unity Lake. Behind this one, we've got Gaunts. Well, Gaunts is actually one of the prettiest lakes I've ever seen, with the islands, the overhanging willows that touch the lake. Fantastic looking pit. We've also got fish in there to mid-40s, lots of backup 30s and hordes of 20s and doubles. And last but not least, really pretty lake again, Yeoman's. Now that's got, I think I'm right in saying that's got some of the oldest stock on the complex. Certainly the ones I've caught out of there, they're real long, lean mirrors, commons. The mirrors have got massive scales on, dark as you like. So there's something in all these pits for everyone. Now clearly, lovely lakes like this, the Syndicate, is going to have a waiting list through Linear. Now I am led to believe, well I'm actually told by Roy, that once your name's on the list, rarely do you wait longer than 12 months. And also, when you do get in, your ticket is a 12-month ticket. So if you join in May, you finish in May. Now get onto the office, get your name on the list, and let's go fishing. Linear in the winter. The fishing is still incredible. They're at their biggest weights, the carp are. They look unbelievable with the colours. What we're going to do is the tactics change though. We're going to have a little wander around each venue with you, tactical talk. And, you know, in a nutshell, the only thing that does change drastically is times, Ian.
You've got a bit more flexibility in the summer. I think from March the 1st, the gates are open until 9 o'clock at night, so you can get here quite late, do quick overnighters. From the end of September, the gates are shut at 6. They open at 8, so just be mindful when you're coming down what time you're going to get here, or else the gates might be locked. Without further ado, Ian's out on the manor. Let's go and have a look how he tackles that in the winter.
Tactically in the winter, I refine everything. Smaller baits, small hooks, size 10s, lighter hook links that weeds dead, so 12, 15 pound braided hook links, but most importantly, reduce the size of my baits. I'm on 12mm pop-ups or 12mm boilies and a bunch of maggots on one rod. Pellet, corn, hemp, and a lot of maggots involved in there. So instead of spreading your baits out in the summer and hoping the fish are browsing around, bring them all to a bivvy-sized area and you're going to do all right. As far as decent pegs in the winter, well, what I tend to do is there's lots of pegs that allow you access to almost the centre of the lake. Most of the fish, in my opinion, in the winters I've fished here, congregate in that middle section. So there's a lot of pegs that fish it, so it's not just peg 1, 2 or 4, so you're not wiped out before you get here if there's someone in them. Get a peg that gives you central access to the middle, bomb, and you're in with a chance. Right, live session for me, this is on the manor. One of the tactics I do bring in this time of year, little red wrigglers come into it. Now, if I've got a couple of days, I think nothing to bring a couple of gallons, and what I'll do is I'll stick a gallon straight out, and what I'm going to fish over the top of that is a nice little balanced ball of maggots. Half a red highlight, 15 or 20 maggots, and she'll just about balance down. I want the hook sitting on the bed of the lake and the ball balanced so that the maggots don't creep around on the bottom of the lake and tangle around the hook, which I have had, and they spike on it. So there is thought process in this rig. It looks nice and simple. Give it a little bit of thought. Caught 44 pound spike for me last winter. Give it a go.
Winter on Hardwick. It's not an easy venue at the best of times, but there's a lot of people that are absolutely petrified of the place because of the topography of the lake, the ups and the downs, and you've got Smiths at the back and Hardwick at the front and the cut through, so people don't really know where to go. But the fish are catchable. I haven't fished it seriously in the winter for 10 years, but it hasn't really changed that much. There's more fishing, there's still some lovely commons and mirrors, mid to upper 30s, there's some really scattered mirrors that are still knocking just on the 40 pound and they are catchable. Look for some constant depths, don't fish in the really deep water, and I think you'll get bites at any time of year. My favourite swims on Hardwick Smiths are both the spits. Where we filmed in the summer, I've had a lot of fish off that's called the Summer Bay spit, fishing that very shallow plateau. I've also had a lot of fish off the Conveyor spit, fishing into the Hardwick side. And you can keep an eye off both spits, both in Hardwick if you're fishing into Hardwick, but you can also keep your eye on Smiths behind you. You can hear them, you can see them. So you've got sort of all areas of the lake covered, and I think that's where people go wrong. They bury themselves into a corner, they can't see what's going on, so they're restricting themselves. So I would always favour one or two of the spits. If I had to be put on the spot, the Summer Bay spit every time. It is very quiet. This is typical of Hardwick. It's third week in November. It's quite mild for the time of year. There's 2 anglers on the road bank. So what I have just seen, there's 2 guys walking around and having a good walk around, finding somewhere to fish for the next 3 days. And I think it could be a good choice on here. But again, people are scared of it in the summer. So winter, they just rule it out. You know, they want to get bites. They don't think they're going to get bites because of the depth. It's the depth that frightens them. So don't be frightened. You know, the rewards are there if you pursue the marker techniques and you find the shallower areas. The rewards are all the more satisfying at the end of the session. So that's Hardwick Smiths. We're going to go over to B1 and B2 to Ian and see how he tackles that in the winter.
B1 in the winter? Yes, it's fantastic. Let's not forget there's probably 2,000 to 3,000 carp in here. The main thing is keep your eyes open. Small example, friend of mine the other week, 36 hours, 57 fish up to low 30s. B1 is great. B2, there's a lot more fish in this one, but they're more scaly in this one. That's a bit more one-dimensional with your zigs or your solid bags. These, I'm spotting small areas at long range. I use boilies, you know, little beds of bait, big beds of bait on this one. So tactically, I'd rather come on here because you have to give it a little bit more of a thought process. So I favour this one massively over that one.
St John's in the winter. As you can see, there's bivvies everywhere, or there's certainly bivvies in all the swims that I'd want to be in for obvious reasons. That a lot of the fish do, in my opinion, still congregate in this bowl area. Another reason is obviously the big plated, 2 40-pound commons, another 40-pound mirror, and probably 50 or 60 30s. So as a winter water, it's not easy, it's very moody, just like it is in the summer, but if you fish it right and get your tactics right, there's some fantastic results to be had. My tactics on St John's would change from the warmer months to the cold. Primarily I'll be using a lot of zigs, single bright fluoro pop-ups. I think they're massively underused zigs, as they are all the time, but if you look at all the anglers now, there's marker floats popped up everywhere, there's spoms and there's spods flying, and I would imagine that 90% of these anglers are putting maggots out. Whether they're fishing maggots on the hair, I don't know, but I think the maggots are really, really effective, don't get me wrong, but I would be more confident in zigs. Bright, sort of tooties, bananas, pineapples, single baits, just cast at showing fish. I think they will get you bites, but work the columns on the colours of the zigs and I'm sure you'll get bites. The swims you should be looking for are the point area. There's a couple of good swims on the point, the middle of the social bank, which is directly behind my back, and a couple of swims on the road bank. And you're not looking so much for depth differences. There is sort of little ups and bumps and little ups and downs, but you've got really nice smooth silt. Channels of silt, and either side of that you've got the gravel. So it's a bit like the summer tactics. I would always be putting my bait into the silt. Social bank, about 60 yards out, there's a nice sort of gravel slope that comes up, fish past the gravel into the silt. You've got really good rig camouflage. And again, if you're going to work the depths, just look for tiny little pinpricks. There'll be fish under the surface that are just bubbling away, so get your zigs on them.
Well, here we are, Oxley's, which is where we started all this, isn't it?
It's slightly colder.
Oh, it is. It's a few months later and slightly colder. Right, Ian, I fish this a lot more than you when we work. You've just come back in it today. It is cold. It might not look it, but it is cold. What would differ now between now and the summer?
The only thing I would really do differently is I'd still spot, I'd still keep it all tight. I was using my little solid bags with the hemp oil in that I'd obviously nicked off Chrissy Lowe.
Yeah, fair comment,
As a bit of a tactic, but I would just do away with the oil, obviously, because of the colder months.
Same pellets and same
I
hook
wouldn't,
bait.
not so high oil, perhaps just a little 1 mil, not halibuts, not high oil, just that attraction. Still a bright little bait, just the same.
Not really
tactics,
feeding them.
No, just perhaps 10 spods, just enough for a bite, and just solid bag over the top. But
for me, like I did it earlier in the year, the spodding on zigs works. You know, but at this time of year, it's usually flat, calm, bright. It isn't exactly zigging weather. Maggots, again, for me on here, you know, that I put out a gallop, put the skyline marker. It's all quite uniform, doesn't it, as we know, Ian? It's around 11 and 12s, most of the lake. In the silt, centre line, which is where I tend to find most of them, just move up and down in a big gangs they shoal up in. Go in a maggot and fish a couple of little balls of maggots.
I think you're right, because they did away with the weed. I think the fish just moved from the bottom end on the road bank all the way up to the island.
It's pressure.
And possibly come back. And I think you with your maggots, I think you spotting them every little and often, it pulls them, even if the fish is 6 foot off the bottom. It stops them and it'll pull them down on the bottom, won't it?
On any of these lakes, because you imagine everyone's in a line, like I'd say, like a canal, and they've all got the same empcorn, tuna, chili, salt. It's all the same. Find something different that is actually going to, you know, attract their attention. The maggots does it. Maggots and casters does it for me, mate. And you might get a dozen bites. They're inevitably going to move off. And then you go, mate. So for me, tactically, this time of year, you know, something moving about. And you're just scared of maggots because they make your hands smell.
I'm too tight to buy them and they stink. So I'm not going to buy
and when they get all in your hood. But I know, I know. But again, we're doing similar things, but just different hook baits.
Yeah, man.
And in all fairness, the times I've spent on here with you, your tactics produce as much as mine. It's more self-confidence.
Like you say about, it's almost like bingo fishing. When it's full or when it's busy, you're all in a line. You've got to be doing something a bit different, whether it's on the rig end.
Just tweak it, didn't you?
Exactly, mate. Yeah, you're the master at the maggots to tweak.
And interestingly enough, what you said about the weed going in here, because they done away with it in the summer. They dyed it, which is an ongoing thing throughout the lakes. But now you can use your little £10 nylon hook links. And you can scale it all down without. When the weed was, it was £15, or you're going to lose in the berry in it. Now, be aware that them fish are coming in. Although they're hungry fish, and you're creating a bit of a stir up. Fish.
I'll tell you what, not a lot of people do is boilies.
That is also true.
Both I mean, we don't do it, do we? You know,
no, not on this one.
Because you could do bottom baits because there's no weed.
True enough,
scatter with a stick, which I think would work, but I think you're right, the small little bits and pieces get them, don't they?
On here, they're different on here as opposed to your brasenose. The big shoulder-min brasenose tend to loiter near the surface in the winter as well. On here, I know they're lower down because I fished it a lot, so I'm looking at that, the movement, and wallop. I'm sure the boilie approach would work to a degree. You know, you're always going to get bites in here because there's a lot of fish in here, but when them big packs move up and down, they just easily miss like a couple of 100 boilies, but a big area of red and white maggots. For me anyway, it works for me, mate. But question for you, you've done 24 hours, you've set your stall up with your few spots and all that, you ain't had nothing. You're going to move, you're going to sit tight, what are you going to do?
Nice easy question then, put me on the spot. It is very obvious, but I would have a wander. Because I think, a bit like you, they just move up from the island to where you come in. If they're not there, you ain't seeing them, then, you know, have a look at, there's probably 3, 4, 5 acres even behind the island.
Yeah, there is, mate, I bet.
And if there's a lot of people on, again, they'll move away from the lines. They might even be 20 yards out, you know.
Angling pressure, isn't it?
It pushes them about, mate. And if it's really quiet, the carp start to behave like they should behave, you know. They'll come to bait, you know, they'll show, but if it's packed, then they won't. They'll start to be a bit moody, and you're going to have to do something different. So either short in, because if everyone's fishing in the middle, you're not really doing anything different unless you're tweaking. Pull them short, or, you know, there might be
so
2 or 3.
Basically, pull them in, go for a wander. If you find nothing, readdress what's in front of you.
I've had times before, mate, and on other lakes here, St John's, there's a couple of free swims, not the fancied area, and the fish are there. So
you sneak into them.
Yeah,
cool, mate. Again, on Oxley's, well worth a visit in the winter. Hardly anybody here. It's mad.
4 people on here,
well, it is. I mean, we just spoke to the guy. That's where we done the filming in the summer in my peg. Don't know how long it's been here. Ain't had a bite yet, but it's coming. There's so many in there. Just restocked it.
That's right.
Another few hundred. So you know,
central, mate.
If you want to buy it, it's not just about brasenose, although it's a fantastic winter one. Get on here, pin maggots to the bottom, and see how you get on.
Let's go have a look at hunts anyway now.
Yeah, we're off there next, mate.
So this is hunts in the winter. We're actually standing on the first swim as you come through the car park, and this is one of my favourites because you've got quite a lot of water and you've got sort of 3 margins to fish. And this, like I said earlier on St John's, this is the only water I would really still continue to target the margins in the winter. There's not a lot of nuisance species in here. There's some big fish to go at. My tactics wouldn't differ that much. I would still be sort of spodding. I would include a few maggots, obviously not putting them on the hair because that means I would have to touch them. But anything plastic, sort of small 10 millers. But yeah, there's no weed in here. They've dyed this lake as well, so summer or winter. I wouldn't say you can pretty much chuck them anywhere, but there's lots of little seams of gravel and bits of silt, umps and bumps. Find one of them, bait it, and the fish will come, but I would also continue to fish the margins with at least 2 rods in this one particular swim, one on the out of bounds bank and one either tucked in the corner or one on the far margin as well. So that's about it for hunts, that's the lake covered. Let's just finish off by going over to the Guy Syndicate with Ian.
Right, here we are on Gaunt's Lake, which is the third in the chain of lakes on the Guy Syndicate. Absolutely stunning place. Uniform depth most of it. It's about 20 acres. You've got a great big island there. We have got a few little bumps and lumps around, but the majority of it is fairly level, so making it much more easier fishing. It's got a big head of carp, up to 45 pounds. And the tactics you would employ on either the other two of the syndicate lakes or the day ticket lakes over the other side of the river will work here all year round. So bring them with you and you will succeed. Right, we've got 3 big fish in here. One's a common, which I was led to believe is about 44, 45 pound. 2 mirrors knocking on the same doors to get into mid-40s. There's probably another dozen 30-pound fish. So big head of good fish to go for. A lot of them are low 20s. Done a bit of myself on the summer. Caught a lot of fish in short sessions up to 25, 26 pounds. So you've got lots of bites to be had if you try for them, with the odd chance of a real whacker in amongst them. Still on the Guy Syndicate, last but not least we've got Yeomans. Now it's just got some really old scaly carp in here. There's lots of 20s and low 30s real scaly fish, which was famous 4 years ago. Same tactics apply. You're going to catch fish if you bring the tactics from there and the day ticket. So there you go. We've covered all of them. Guy Syndicate. And there you go, Linear Fisheries. Cracking venue, summer or winter. Got to be the best day ticket fishery in the country. On that note, I'm going to get my rods out on the manor. Check you later.
You've all seen it, get yourself down. By the way, did he tell you he had spike at 44 pounds? I'm off.